What's up guys, I'm Mr. Audio, and if you're new to the channel, welcome. In this video we're going to dissect a kick, and look at all the parts that make up every kick, or a good kick that will translate on all systems. Let's get into it. Alright, so through this process, at the end of it, I hope that you'll understand how to better layer your kicks properly and what to look out for and paying attention to the phase relationships. Now I've done another video where I talk about the phase relationships of kicks and how to watch out for them. I'm going to go a bit more in depth and expand upon that a bit in this video. So let's take a look at what three parts make up a kick, because there are three parts that make up a kick. There's the click or the attack part, which contains the most high-end energy of all of the parts. And then there's the mid-range part, which I like to call the beef. It's pretty much the oomph of the kick. And then you have the sub-region, which carries the sub-energy. So as you can see here, I have a kick. And I'm just going to loop that kick, and we're going to take a listen to it right away. Alright, first thing I notice is it's got high-end, it's got mid-range, and it's got sub-energy, which means it's going to translate on all systems. By all systems, I mean phones and laptops as well. Now let's look at the waveform and see if we can differentiate the three parts of the kick. Alright, so if you zoom in here, you'll notice that there's this part of the kick, and then you notice that there's this part, and then you notice that there's this part. So right here is your clicky part. Now I'm going to explain why this scrunched up waveform is your click part. So if we click on this part and bring up the clip view, you'll see that there's this center line here. That center line right there in the middle, when the waveform goes above and below it, this center line means the speaker is not moving if it's right there. So if the audio is flat on that center line, that means it's producing no audio out of that speaker. The speaker is staying still. Now if the waveform goes above that center line, it tells the speaker to move forward. If it goes below that center line, it tells the speaker to move backwards. Now this also plays into the polarity of the signal. So if you take and flip the polarity and you have a peak up here and a valley down here, that's going to be switched. It's going to be a 180 flip. You'll have the peak up here and the valley down here. So now let's get into the cycles part. All right, so now let's look at the waveform again. When the audio goes above the center line and then down, that's called one cycle. The more frequently the cycles happen, the higher the note or higher the frequency of that sound. So, for instance, 400 hertz. It's very mid-range, and that means it cycles 400 times per second. All right, 4,000 hertz cycles 4,000 times per second. Now, what that means for dividing up a kick into its three parts is you can visually see that this is the high end, this is the mid-range, and then this is the sub-region here, based on how fast these cycles are happening. The more frequent the cycles happen, the higher the frequency the sound is. I know, it's kind of ironic, but that's the truth. So, you can pretty much divide up a kick visually. You can say, hey, this part of the kick is the click, this part of the kick is the beef, and then this is the sub-region, everything that's left, because the cycles slow down and stay consistent. Now let's listen to what the click sounds like. As you can see, it's very top-end heavy. There's almost no mid-range or low-end there at all. This is what you're going to hear on phone speakers and laptop speakers. Stuff that can't really produce anything below 400 hertz. Now let's take a look at the beef or the mid-range part of the kick. The part that carries the most weight, or at least in my opinion, of the kick. Let's just give a listen to hear what it sounds like. Now here it is with the click. As you can see by themselves, without the sub-energy, it's still not a kick. It doesn't sound like a kick. To the point that I was talking about earlier about phase relationship. When you have one sound telling the speaker to move backwards and one sound telling the speaker to move forward, what do you think is going to happen? It's going to reproduce the difference in those two values. Like let's just put numbers in the scenario, all right? Let's just say this sound tells the speaker to move forward 1, and this sound tells it to move backwards 0.3. Well, it's going to produce a sound at the volume of the difference of those two values. So it'll produce a sound of 0.7. Does that make sense? So when layering your kicks properly, you have to watch out for this mistake. Now, this is just the same kick moved over, but we're going to see what this sounds like with and without. So this is without that bottom layer. And then this is with. See how it lost all the weight of that and started becoming more top-end heavy? We can resample and render out the waveform, and I can prove that it became more top-end heavy by just looking at the waveform, but we don't need to do that because we can already hear it. Now moving on, let's check out the sub-region and see what kind of sub-energy this kit contains. As you can see, I just captured that sub-region. It's got a lot of good sub-energy in this kick, and this kick would translate well across all systems. Let's see what happens when we layer another sub-region in and do the same thing we did with the mid-range part of it. Let's see what that does to it. So this is with. Now this is without that sub-region. See how all that weight comes right back? All that sub-energy comes right back when I unsolo that extra track. All right, so now what we can do, let's see what all of these sound like together, the ones we've moved over just a little bit and layered in. Let's group them here. Turn them on. We're going to mute this group here, and we're just going to solo out these 3 tracks here. Then we're going to see what this kick sounds like just in 3 parts by itself. Sounds just like the original. Here, let's prove that. As you can see, it sounds just like the original. Now let's add that other group in as we're playing it, the ones we've layered in. Now I'm adding them in now. See how it makes the kick like a third weaker and more top-end heavy? That's not at all what we want. We layered more stuff in there. It should be thicker and heavier, right? Wrong. It's because we didn't watch the phase cancellation of what we were adding in there. We didn't make sure it worked. Sometimes you might have to move and shift stuff around and chop off the beginning of it just to make the waveform fit phase relationship-wise. Anyway, I hope you stuck around to the end, and if you have and you're an Ableton user, you know the drill. All right, there's some free racks with links in the description. Updates to those coming soon, so stick around. And thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Mr. Audio, out.